So this is our laundry room. Just like the mudroom, it's kind of just become like a weird catch-all. We've got boxes from our move, we've got some random piece tees, gaming rack, baby carrier, random stuff from the beach. It's kind of become a mess in here, and we can do much better. So let's take this and turn it into this. Let's get to work. So with any cabinet project, this one starts off with a sheet of plywood. We opted for poplar-veneered plywood, that way it could tie in with the mudroom that was also made of poplar. If you haven't seen that video, I'll throw a link to that one down below, be sure to check it out. And there's my wife being a goofball, but since she's there, let's go ahead and put her to work. To this day, the only way that I'm willing to cut down plywood is using a track saw. I used to use a circular saw and a straight edge, but the results are just infinitely better with a track saw. So if you're on the fence about it, here's the donnygrahambuilds stamp of approval. It's worth the investment. After getting the pieces rough cut with the track saw, I can bring them over to the table saw, lock my fence in place, and then rip both pieces down without moving my fence, and that'll guarantee that everything is the exact same width. Once I had my walls and my bottom cut, I could look at what I'm going to do for the top. Now with most cabinets, you don't actually have a top. There aren't really 4 pieces. There's 2 sides, a bottom, and then you cut 3 to 4 inch strips to make up the top support pieces. This saves on weight, this saves on material, and it just makes the overall construction a lot easier. And now that those are ripped to the correct widths, we can look at getting them cut to length. I'm using the sliding feature on my table saw fence to butt the piece up against, and then as I push the piece through the table saw blade, it becomes free of the fence and therefore can't bind. This is really important because it helps to prevent kickback and keeps everything safe. For joinery, we're going to use pocket holes. This is specifically what pocket holes are designed for, so they really shine in this application. Once all the pocket holes were drilled in the side panels, we could also drill holes in those stretchers that we're using for our top supports. Then, before we go to assemble everything, we're going to use this jig from Craig. This is for adjustable shelf pins. It's a really simple jig, pretty affordable. I'll leave a link down to this in the description below if you want to check it out for yourself. Once our shelf pin holes are done, we can work on construction. Using glue and pocket hole screws, I attach the boards using these 90-degree clamps. From Craig, these things are super handy. Once I get everything at a 90, I use the bar clamps to lock everything in place and then drive home those screws. Once our walls are connected to the bottom, we can attach our top stretchers. I do one stretcher in the top back and the top front, and then one stretcher on the back top and back bottom. Adding the top back and the top bottom gives a great place to attach the cabinets to the wall as an anchoring point. And then once we've got one of these done, we just need to make a second one. It's the exact same construction, so there we go. With the cabinets made, I'm ripping down some 1/4 inch plywood to use as a back panel and a top panel. The top panel is just going to sit on those 2 stretcher pieces and then give us a surface if we ever want to store something up high, we can, and kind of keep it up and out of the way. Attaching these panels is as easy as just applying a little bit of glue and then driving everything home with some brad nails. Also, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, go ahead and click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. That keeps you updated on every video I drop and helps me know what kind of content you guys are really enjoying. Then, before you know it, we've got 2 cabinets. Just a few hours of work and we're well underway. However, we still need face frames and doors, which brings us to the poplar hardwood. As you guys know, I'm a huge fan of poplar, but this batch here has some discoloration. On the left, you see that it's had no sun exposure, and on the right, it's got a lot of exposure. These 2 colors will really balance out as the piece ages over time. And right here, we'll jump to a quick little montage of me getting all this crap out of here. There's so many random things that we just didn't need anymore, so it was really nice to get this down to a nice bare surface so we can work on these improvements. I'll throw in a quick note here. If you're ever taking down wire shelving like this, take a utility knife and score the caulk line. That really helps this stuff pry off a lot better. And then where the drywall anchors are, use a putty knife to pry those away, and that'll help the drywall tear out it'll just be a lot less. You'll probably still have to do a little bit of patchwork, but overall it'll be tremendously better if you do some due diligence there. Okay, so I've been on the fence about whether or not I actually wanted to take the washer and dryer out of here, and ultimately I think I'm going to. We're going to be painting most of this wall, and we're going to be doing the wainscoting along the lower back section here, and it would just be so much easier if these were out of the way. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about how to disconnect and move these, just because there's already thousands of videos out there that show how to install and uninstall a washer and dryer, and it's really straightforward. Just a couple of bolts or nuts, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, so we're going to get started on this, and then we can work on the wainscoting. Once the washer and dryer were out of the way, we had a much better space to work with, and we can take our measurements for our wainscoting. I also wanted to go ahead and take this little white panel off. They just pop right off there. They're pretty ugly, and I'm going to replace it with poplar to match the upper cabinets. Then we can get our laser level set and start installing that wainscoting. Well, first, get it cut to length, and then start installing it. Installation was nothing fancy. I just used some construction adhesive and some brad nails, setting those into the wall. These aren't going to be carrying any weight, and the construction adhesive's plenty to keep it attached to the wall. We just use the brad nails to give the adhesive time to cure up. For the vertical sections, I just decided to go with 8 inches apart. I had no real reason for this. It was pretty arbitrary, but it ended up coming together pretty nicely. Once all those boards were installed, we could tape everything off, apply some caulk to make sure we had clean lines, and then using this caulking tool and some paper towel, we could go through and clean all those up and get nice straight lines. Also, fun editing fact, if you're ever trying to show people how to do something, just make sure you're right in front of the camera the whole time. Makes for great content. Anyway, my poor filming skills aside, once we had all that taped off, we could start painting. Again, we're using the same green paint that we used on the mudroom to really tie these 2 spaces together. If you haven't seen that video, I'll throw a link down below. It's definitely one worth checking out. Okay, so the wainscoting inside is done. I went ahead and attached our 2 cabinets with these middle stretchers that are also going to be shelves. So now we need to make the face frame. We cut up all of that hardwood poplar. To make the face frame, we're just going to cut those to length and then pocket hold those together and then glue everything on the face. So let's do that.
Now, there's a lot of ways to attach face frames, but since these cabinets were going to be up against 2 walls, I just used pocket holes from the outside. That way I didn't have to worry about filling brad nails on the face.
All right, so we've got the washer and dryer back into the laundry room. It's installed. Again, super easy process. Just gotta tighten a couple water lines and plug everything else in. The wainscoting is a little lower. You can't see it super well, and I know what you're thinking. Why'd you go through all that effort and spend money on it if you can't see it? I knew it would be a background detail, and honestly, it took me a total of like 3 hours. The paint we had left over, so that was free. The silicone was $2, and the pine wood that I used for the actual slats was like $4. So really, for a background texture, I think it was well worth the time and the money that was put into it. Now we're gonna look into mounting our upper cabinets. As you can see, we only painted the middle because those are gonna be covered by the cabinets, and we wanted to save on paint because we didn't have that much left. I went ahead and marked out where the studs are, and it's a good thing you can use a stud finder to find, because normally studs should be 16 on center, and these are obviously not 16 on center. So marking those out with blue tape lets me know where I can drive my screws in through those backer boards that we made on the cabinets earlier in the video, and get these nice and secure to the wall. So let's do that. One other thing, if you're like me and you're working on your own a lot, then the best way to get these installed is to set your laser level and then attach a temporary board where you want the bottom of your cabinets to be along the wall, and then sit your cabinets on that as a ledge where you secure them in. That way you're not holding it still with one hand and trying to keep things level. It skips all that nonsense, keeps it way more accurate, and more importantly, way safer. I'll show you how.
Well, I was gonna show you how to do that, but when I went to install it, I realized that I did not give myself a very good tolerance and ended up having to disassemble everything. That way I could maneuver the piece into place. So learn from my mistakes, give yourself a little bit of flexibility room so you can actually get the cabinet into its spot.
So this is the design that I came up with for the doors. It was actually a little challenging. I needed to figure out the spacing in order to get even spacing between all of these individual slats. So I had to take the full length of the opening here and then the measurements of each individual slat, and then figure out what space would work to where there'd be even spacing all the way across. And I'm sure there's some complicated mathematical formula you could do to figure that out, but I didn't want to. So I found out that a 3/16 piece of plywood and 2 Uno cards were the perfect distance. So now we know. Who needs math? I'm just kidding. Kids, stay in school. You do need math.
I'm using my domino here to join these boards together, but dowels and or pocket hole screws would work just as well. Then, after a little gentle persuasion, I could clamp these up and let them dry up overnight, and the next day we can come back and do everyone's favorite part of any project, sanding. Then, when I was done sanding, I thought I'd do a little more sanding. But once the sanding was finally done, I wanted to give a profile edge, and you guys know I'm a sucker for a good chamfer. Hang in there with me, we're almost done. We're just gonna get our hardware using this Craig jig. This is for our soft close hinges. This jig's super handy. I'll leave a link down to this one below. It's really easy to use and way quicker than having a drill press. Figured while we were drilling holes in the board, we might as well get the holes drilled for our handles. We're going to use the same black, sleek, modern handles that we used on the dresser and on the TV stand. I know I've said it before, but man, poplar is gorgeous. Once our finish was dry, we could go ahead and install our soft close hinges. Again, since we use that jig, this process is super quick and easy. And now it's time for the install. Then using some leftover scrap poplar, I created some shelves to go in the cabinets, some floating shelves to go on the wall. I just mounted these using some pocket hole screws going into the actual studs, super sturdy. And then I decided to also make some custom hanging racks for our stroller and the carrier that attaches to the stroller. This room's functionality is off the charts. I know this has been a bit of a long road, but finally, we're ready for that sweet, sweet B-roll.
Alright guys, that's going to do it for this week's video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and watching me build this. I put a lot of work into these builds and I put a lot of work into the videos, and it means the world to me that you guys want to follow along on this journey. If you did enjoy it, please like, comment, subscribe, share it with a friend. It really helps the channel out. It gets more viewers to the page, which tells YouTube that my videos are worth watching. That's going to do it for this week, guys. Until next time, get out there, tackle your own projects. We hit roadblocks, we hit headaches. We got to persevere, we got to get it done, and the results usually turn out pretty well when we do. Take care.